Hey everyone, Mega Shrine Cosplay here, and today I am going to be showing you how I went about making this Dragon Slayer sword. It's a massive piece, a bit too big for everything to fit in the frame, but you can see it here, and I've got, of course, video footage throughout the video that you can see it in its entirety. This massive project took about a month to do. It was printing on my 3D printers for almost 2.5, 3 weeks straight, and then the actual build and paint took me about another final week or so to do. I've got a list of materials that I use below, but I will show you them throughout the video and at the end, of course. So let's get to it. So everything was printed on my CR10 V2 at about roughly 0.2 millimeter height and with a 10% infill. Once everything was printed, there's about 7 different pieces or so. I can't remember how many total. They were all glued and assembled together with the Bob Smith Industries CA glue. The stuff works fantastic. Just make sure you are careful with applying it because it will stick to your fingers and make them get stuck. I used an accelerant to speed up the drying process of the glue. Without it, the glue will set and harden in about 15-20 seconds, but with the accelerant, it takes about 5. For the handle of the blade, I used a, I believe, almost 7-foot long, 1-inch diameter PVC pipe and inserted into the blade. To make the blade rigid, I used the Flex Foam from Reynolds Advanced Materials, or Smooth-On, and I mixed up a couple of different batches and poured it into the blade. I had to tap the foam into the blade to make sure it got all down into the nooks and crannies of it, and I did that about 3 times to completely fill it. Once the blade was set, I moved on to the sanding process. I started with a rough pass with, I believe, 220, and used my circular sander to sand every surface on the blade, including the middle, but I was trying not to put too much pressure on the middle portion so that I did not lose the texture. Once I did my first pass of sanding, I went ahead and used the spot putty, Bondo spot putty, to fill in any imperfections and try to level out the surface. Then I resanded to make everything smooth again. After that, I covered everything with my filler primer and added more Bondo spot putty to even out the surfaces so that I could do another pass of sanding. Overall, I made about 5 or 6 different passes of sanding, increasing the grit up until I started hand sanding, which at then that point I got to roughly 1,000 grit, and then a final pass wet sanding with 2,000. Once all the sanding was done, I put on a base layer of super gloss black paint and primer from Rust-Oleum, just the cheapest of the cheap. Once the base black coat has set, I begin to apply the chrome paint. I use a Spaz Stix Mirror Chrome. I love this stuff. And I gradually apply it in a circular motion and cover the blade a couple times. You really want to take your time with this process and build up the level of shine and chrome that you want. And as you'll see through the video, it really starts to take effect after about the 3rd or so pass, and then you'll have a nice shine. Once the chrome is set, I use a bit of steel wool to drag down to create kind of that scuffing and wear and tear on the blade. Once the base color was down, I taped off the middle section so that I could darken it to kind of match more of the aesthetic of the original sword. I used a steel paint from Alclad, and then once that was down, I used some graphite powder to brush into the nooks and crannies of the texture to really make it pop. Once the colors were done, I took a mixture of a black acrylic paint and water and thinned it down and made a black wash, which then I then paint into the middle section of the blade to really kind of make it a lot darker. And then I wasn't worried too much about the color running off onto the edge of the blade because I simply just wiped it off and smeared some of it into the blade itself to kind of give it a more dingy and worn look. Once the painting was done, I went in and did some highlighting with some silver rub and buff, and I took a small flat brush and just hit the high points of the guard and the chain and then areas on the blade, like the slashes and nips in there. Once I was done with the highlighting of the rub and buff, I went in and added a little bit of blood. I used this candy red blood. I'll put the link to it in the description, and used a stipple brush to kind of splatter it onto the guard area of the blade, and then whatever's left of my hand I put onto the handle and guard because of course if you're fighting demons you're going to get blood on the handle as well. Alright, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit in this video and got to see how I painted this bad boy and put it together. Hopefully you can use some of the techniques that I use to paint or create your own props. Or if you want to make this yourself, I'll have the link to it in the description and build away. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see. I'm hoping to get some more videos out to you, so stay tuned.